Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in today's first video doing the 7th and final Spring 2021 update for today's first video. So here we go, we've come to the end of another season of long range updates and yeah, we're going to give the 7th and final last Spring update in a moment. We're going to look at QBO and February data for the business. We're going to be an extended one, as you can probably see on the tabs there. Got a lot to get from. I shall get on it for you very shortly. Just say that coming up later on, you're going to have GavsWeatherVids Sunday roundabout will be your usual Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon eclectic mix of this and that. We're looking at things like sea surface temperature anomalies, activity, and more. So that'll be coming up later on. And they'll be live streaming from 6 o'clock. I'm cutting back on the live streams a little bit at the moment as we're going into spring. Going to have a couple of months, you know, not rest, but a couple of months not as busy, I suppose. So I won't be doing as many live streams, but we will still do the Sunday live streams every Sunday. They're not going anywhere. And we'll be showing you more long-range data in the Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening live stream from 6 o'clock. We're looking at more long-range data for summer 2021. So I shall see you live at 6 o'clock. So, just say thank you so much to Shryan for helping with the updates, with the spring updates, and with this one as well. So, thank you so much to my good friend Shryan Bram. And also, of course, thank you so much to Richard and also to Fluffy the Bunny. Thank you so much to Rich for the wonderful spring updates gift. This is going to be the last time. Oh no. This will be the last time that you see Fluffy the Bunny. But never mind. We're going to free Fluffy after the video. I'm so sorry, everybody. So yeah, be freeing Fluffy after the video, but this will be the final time that you see Fluffy. So if you enjoy seeing Fluffy, then make the most of it, because you won't see Fluffy again once this is over and done with. But Richard will keep an eye on Fluffy, and he'll you know, report regularly about how Fluffy is doing and what Fluffy thinks about things. So don't worry, you'll hear more about Fluffy even if you don't see Fluffy. So sorry, everybody. I love it. I love that gift. It's the best one that Richard's ever done. I don't think Richard can ever top that, really, but I bet he does. I bet he comes up with something else that tops it. But Fluffy the Bunny will go down in GavsWeatherVids, you know, go down in GavsWeatherVids folklore, I think, as being a truly epic bunny. So thank you so much to Richard and to Fluffy, as of course. The video is going to be placed on the spring. I'm sorry, everybody. The video will be placed on the spring updates page with a written summary. I'm so sorry. With a written summary tomorrow, on Monday, hopefully, if I can control myself, and you'll be able to see the video. I'm gone. Cav's gone. No, calm down, Cav. Take a deep breath. Right, so I should pause up the video. Sorry, everybody. I'm being very unprofessional. Right, be calm. Be calm, Gav, be calm. Right, so the video we place on the spring updates page with a written summary, and I shall get that up for you tomorrow, hopefully, up the website, so you'll be able to have a read of that whenever you would like to. And it's that bunny, whenever I said it sets me off. I better crack on, I think. Let's do it then. Right, so first we're going to look at for this final 7th final spring update video is... I'm so sorry, everybody. Right, let's get myself under control. Right, okay. So the first thing that we're going to be looking at with this is going to be the what are we looking at? We're looking at the QBO, aren't we? We're looking at the westerly face of the QBO, yes. So this is a QBO page from NASA. Let's just scroll down to this, have a look at it then. So we are in a westerly phase of the QBO right now. We started going easterly last year. Look at this, 2020. We started going easterly, went into a negative phase of the quasi-Biennial oscillation. But that failed through the middle part of the year, and as we went on into the autumn, we found the westerly QBO coming back and strengthening. So where we are right now is in quite a strong phase of the westerly QBO. And if this continues through the next few months, that's February, of course, there, that will be March's number, April's number will be there, and May's number will be just there. If this continues through the spring, then the spring is going to be like a mature westerly QBO. And so that's the first thing that we're going to look at. We're going to be looking at springs that coincide with mature, strong, westerly QBO phases. I'm under control now, everybody. I'm under control. Right, so the first spring is going to be, no, not. The first spring is going to be 1967 with below average heights over to North Country, above average heights in the middle of the North Atlantic. And the jet stream flow coming through like that. This is a rather mild and unsettled spring in 1967 with westerly winds and outbreaks of rain. Our next mature westerly QBO spring is 1973. This one is more anticyclonic with above average heights out to our west and northwest, below average heights to our north and northeast, and it's sending a jet stream on the northwest southeast alignment. This is a drier spring, but potentially a little bit cooler. Our next spring is 1976. It's a very dry and quite warm spring with above average heights extending through the UK into northern Europe, below average heights towards Greenland and also in the southern part of the Mediterranean. That's a dry and warm spring in 1976. Of course, this is part of the drought years of 75 and 76, so most of these are quite dry. That's one of them. Also quite warm. And of course, the next season on is going to be the really hot summer of 1976, the daddy of hot summers, if you like. Our next westerly QBO spring, mature westerly QBO spring, is 1978. This one has below average heights over and to the east and south of the country, above average heights to our north. Winds are in from an easterly direction. So that is a cool and quite wet spring in 1978. Not a very nice spring at all. The next spring is 1983. This is a very unsettled spring with deep low pressure over top of the UK and Western Europe. So we're on the cool side of the jet stream after a mild winter. The spring of 1983 is cold, and there is some classic snow around the Easter period of 1983. Very cool wet May as well, to be followed by a hot summer. The next spring coincides with a mature westerly QBO phase is going to be 1993. This one is much more anticyclonic with high pressure over to the east of the country, low pressure out to west. A relatively warm and dry spring in 1993. And then we have the spring of 1995, which was a mature westerly QBO spring. This one with below average heights to our east, above average heights out to our west. Quite cool during March of 1995. Does have some snow in March 95, but otherwise it's a relatively dry and warm spring, especially so later on. It gets very hot in May 1995, setting up a hot summer to come. The next mature westerly QBO spring is 1999. This one's a little bit more unsettled with low pressure over and just to the west of the country. Winds tend to be a little bit more west to southwesterly. That's another pretty warm spring as well. It does have like quite a cold spell in the middle of April, but otherwise it's generally quite a dry and warm spring in 1999. And then we've got 2002. This one, again, quite a warm spring. It's got a Scandinavian high pressure to the east, low pressure to the west, bringing in the winds from like a southeast direction. A lot of warm and dry weather in the spring of 2002. Next one is 2004, so this one with high pressure up to our north and away to the northwest as well, winds in from an easterly direction. Has quite a cold first half to March, I think, in 2004, with some early snowfall. Otherwise, again, that is quite a dry and pretty mild or warm spring in 2004. And then next up, we've got 2011, which is a, again, mature westerly QBO spring. This one is very anticyclonic. It contains like the hottest April on record as well, with high pressure dominating. Low pressure is up towards Greenland and Iceland and will descend into the summer. But for the autumn, for the spring, I should say, it's been a very long day, I have to tell you. For the spring of 2011, I'm not feeling too good either. I'm going to tell you that as well. So for the spring of 2011, we're just dry and very warm, almost summer-like in April. We have summer in April, and then it's down the pan for the summer itself. And then the final spring that coincides with a mature westerly QBO is 2019. Again, a lot of dry and fine weather through this spring. Lots of high pressure dominating, bringing a good deal of dry and often quite warm conditions. So putting all of that together, this is how all Marches combined are looking with a mature westerly QBO. We tend to have above average heights, high pressure extending in from the Atlantic into West Europe. Low pressure tends to be towards Greenland and Iceland. Jets tend to be pushed northwards. It's a warm, dry signal, or a mild, dry signal for those Marches. A lot of dry and fine weather on offer. Goes on into April. All Aprils combined coincide with a mature westerly QBO phase. Seems to have high pressure dominating over slightly to the north of the country. Maybe easy winds, but that's typical for spring. Really quite a dry and warm signal for all of those Aprils as well. Very different for May, though. Look at this. All Mays combined following a mature westerly QBO spring look like that. And suddenly all the high pressure goes and we replace it with low pressure almost over the top of the country. We also start to see the re-emergence of northern blocking, which is always a little bit alarming in the summer months. And May is nearly into summer, of course. Jet stream gets pushed southwards. So a cool, wet signal for those Mays. Very interesting. And all springs combined following a mature westerly QBO phase look like this. So perhaps a little bit more unsettled than you might envisage, actually. Low pressure to the north-northwest, high pressure is through there and over there. Keep in mind that a lot of that is down to what's happening in May. We do have an anticyclonic signal, by and large, for March and for April. So March and April favouring a lot of dry and quite warm weather, but then a complete flip, something a lot cooler and a lot more unsettled in May. Now, the other possibility for the quasi-biennial oscillation, I don't know what happened there, is that we're going to go from a westerly to an easterly QBO phase. This is from NASA. So we've got to think with this, I've got a stratosphere up here, the top of the atmosphere. We've got the troposphere just here. That's the boundary level of the atmosphere where it takes place between 30 and 50 HPA. So that, of course, is the strat, and this is the trop. Right, so to get either a westerly or an easterly QBO, we've got to get these phases into the troposphere. So at the moment, we're in a westerly QBO, but this is depicted by this sandy-coloured area just here. Westerly QBO is in the troposphere. However, we have got the easterly QBO in the stratosphere, and the easterly QBO has been in the stratosphere since last year. Did have an attempt last year, descending last spring actually, descending into the troposphere, but was unable to descend properly and got sent back. Went from whence it came into the stratosphere. It was sent packing back up to the stratosphere, and that's where it still is. So at the moment, we've got the easterly QBO in the stratosphere, locked in there, and we've got the westerly QBO in the troposphere. Now, it is possible. We don't know what's going to happen with this because, as I said, we should have gone into an easterly QBO last spring and last summer, and we should still be in the easterly QBO now, probably beginning to wind down and beginning to start to flip to westerly QBO, because what we actually have is like a westerly QBO ongoing. At some point, we think this ECQBO, I hope you're following me, this is very involved, very complicated. At some point, we think this ECQBO will descend from the stratosphere to the troposphere. When that happens, though, we do not know. But it is possible that we might see the easterly QBO descending from the strat to the trop quite quickly through this spring. And if that happens, then we will, of course, have a spring that is transitioning from a westerly to an easterly QBO phase. So the other possibility that we have to look at with the QBO for this spring is west to east transitioning QBO springs. These are all springs where there is a transition beginning during the spring. A weakening of the westerly QBO and a transition beginning to the easterly QBO. They might not necessarily be easterly QBOs in their own right, because it takes a little while to complete the transition from one phase to another. But these are sort of transitioning QBO springs. Right, so the first one that does that is 1958 and has very unsettled signal with below average heights across northern and western Europe, above average heights blocking towards Greenland. This is quite a cold and wet spring, and particularly so in March of 1958, which is a very, very chilly, cold month. The next spring that has a transition from a western easterly QBO phase is spring of 1960. This one is much drier and much warmer with high pressure over Scandinavia and winds in from an easterly direction. That's a nice spring in 1960. The next west to east transitioning QBO spring is 1962. Again, this one has northern blocking up towards Iceland and Greenland with below average heights, low pressure across the northern and western parts of Europe, winds in from the north. That's a cold spring in 1962. Cold and unsettled, especially cold in March, which is one of the coldest Marches on record, setting up, of course, the dirty of cold winters since 263. Our next QBO transitioning spring, west to east QBO transitioning spring, is 1972. This one is unsettled with low pressure across the west of Europe. A wet and unsettled spring in 1972. Next spring is 1979. This is a cold spring with deep low pressure across the west of Europe combined with northern blocking. There's a lot of wintry weather through this spring because it follows the winter of discontent. It follows a very cold winter, and we have a very cold winter. Often the pattern will linger on into the spring. So that is a very cold and wintry spring. Still snowing in May, can you believe, of 79. The next spring is 1981. This is a milder spring, but it is also quite unsettled with low pressure in off the Atlantic. It does have a little bit of northern block, and it has a very, very impressive late April snowstorm right at the end of April 1981. There's a tremendous blizzard and snowstorm across much of England and Wales. The next west to east QBO transition spring is 1991. This one is high pressure dominated, so mainly dry and quite a warmish spring as well, I think, in 1991. Quite a long gap then through to 2007. The next time we have a west to east transitioning QBO spring is 2007. This one with a lot of high pressure dominating the scene. It's a mainly dry and warm spring, certainly March and April. Things begin to deteriorate a lot though in May 2007, and we eventually go into a very, very wet and cold summer. And then the final spring that contains a west to east QBO transition is 2009. This one is quite a warm and dry spring with a fair amount of high pressure to the south and east of the country, low pressure way to the northwest, winds tending to be in from a southerly southwest direction. After a bit of a teaser winter for 0809, we have a relatively dry and warm spring in 2009. Oh, not quite last. We've got 2014 here. Sorry about that, everybody. I forgot. Spring 2014 is the last one that has the the west to east QBO transition. It's been a very, very long day, everybody. So I got these together myself as well, so I should know the running order, shouldn't I? So this one is a dry and warm spring with a west to east QBO transition, following, of course, that phenomenally wet and stormy winter of 2013-2014. Right, that is it then. So putting all marches together, this is how they're coming out. We have a west to east QBO transition. Much in the way of northern blocking, you'll notice, with these marches. So, yeah, when there's a transition going on from an east to a west, from a west to an east QBO, we do get northern blocking with low pressure underneath it, setting up potentially quite a cold and wintry sort of march. All Aprils combined, much more anticyclonic when we have this transition from a west to an east QBO. A lot of high pressure domination in the Aprils. And then all Mays combined with a west to east QBO transition, looking very unsettled again with a lot of low pressure in off the Atlantic, high pressure around the Azores, winds in from west-northwest direction. Those Aprils are quite cool and wet. Those Mays, I should say, quite cool and wet. And then all springs combined following the west to east QBO transition, looking unsettled, below average heights across the west of Europe, above average heights up towards Greenland, jet streams plunging southwards. So yeah, quite a cool wet signal for those springs. And that brings to an end the first part of this 7th spring 2020 update. But as I say, it's going to be an extended one, miss, because we're not done yet. We want to bring a little bit of February data. And so I'll pause the video there. You go and get yourself a cup of tea and a few nibbles, perhaps. We'll see whether Fluffy wants a nibble, shall we? A little bit of lettuce or something. I shall see you back. No, I haven't set myself up again, have I? I shall see you back here around 2 seconds. And we'll have a look at the final batch of analogues for our spring updates. See you soon. We're back and we're ready to bring you... What was that? What's that, everybody? I don't know. We're back and we're ready to bring you the final batch of analogues before we get spring forecast together. So just if you're enjoying this video, please smash your like button. Let us know in the comments what you think. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. We're trying to grind to 11k subscribers, but it's all slowed up a lot. Never mind, we're going to get to 11k probably in around 5 years. No, we will get to 11k at some point in the future. So please make sure you sub to the channel. Tell everybody to subscribe as well. Right then, so that rabbit, I just got to look at that rabbit and it sets me off. Right, let's do this then. I'm going to look at the last batch of analogues and then we're done with our spring updates. All that remains will be to bring a spring forecast next Sunday. Oh, we have got one more season, one roundup to go, by the way. So if you're wondering about that, first video up on Saturday will be the second and last spring 2021 season one around about Saturday, and then Sunday we'll have a spring forecast for you. Right, let's do this then. So we're going to look at February data for this one. So here we go then. Now, of course, with this, we're just sort of pitching where we think we're going to land up. So at the moment, the CET for February is standing at 3.8. However, we think we're going to get a large increase in the central temperature over the final sort of week or so of the month. My good friend Simon, aka Global Warming from the Weather Outlook Forum, is projecting that the CET will finish up at around 5.5. Now, because this is a projection, there is a margin for error, so it might be a little bit under that. might be a little bit above that, but the central range of Simon's projection is 5.5, and it's very rarely all that far out. I mean, it might be like a tenth out, but it's usually very, very close. So 5.5 is where Simon thinks we're going to land up with central temperature for this February. And so, very, very simply, we're going to be looking at, for this last batch of analysis, we're going to be looking at springs following February's with a CT range of 5.3 to 5.7. Of course, that places that will place February. If we're right with the projection, that will place February 2021 right in the centre of that range. My good friend Shryan has sorted out all of these years for us. Right, so the first spring following a February with a CT range of 5.3 to 5.7 is 1849. This is a very, very wet spring with low pressure over the northwest Europe. High pressure is up towards Greenland. Winds are in from the east. A cold and wintry spring. That one. Let's start closing down some of these tabs as we go along and say spring is coming. Right, so the next spring following a February with a CT range of 5.3 to 5.7 is 1856. This one has high pressure up towards Greenland. Iceland will pull wind into the east. Easterly spring and maybe quite cold with it. The next spring, following a February CT range of 5.3 to 5.7, is 1859. This one with low pressure across much of northern and western Europe. That's like a very unsettled spring, potentially, as on the cool side of a jet stream, quite a cool spring as well. Spring is coming, everybody. Our next spring, with a February CT range of 5.3 to 5.7, is 1878. This one is a very wet spring with low pressure of the Atlantic into northwest Europe. There is quite a bit of northern blocking as well. Hints of cold weather perhaps through this spring. So cool, maybe at times quite cold and wet in 1878. Next up, we have a spring of 1884 with this February CT range. This one's very wet, low pressure over and to the west of the UK and Ireland. Winds in from a southerly southwest direction. That's a very wet spring. Not all that cold, I wouldn't have thought, but generally quite a wet spring. Quite a long gap then through to 1908. Our next spring, following a February with a city range of 5.3, 5.7, is going to be 1908. Cold and wet with this one. Northern blocking combined with trough of low pressure has a very impressive late April blizzard in 1908. Our next spring is 1912. This one is unsettled and mild with low pressure in off the Atlantic. High pressure is down towards Spain. Winds are in from a westerly direction. That is an unsettled but generally mild spring in 1912. Next, we have spring of 1923. This one also very unsettled with low pressure over top of the country. There's a non-blocking signal as well in that spring. Spring's coming, everybody. Our next spring is 1937. This one, again, quite unsettled. Most of these springs do seem to be pretty grim, don't they? With low pressure in off the Atlantic, bringing loads of wet and cool weather as well. And then we've got the spring of 1939. This one with high pressure out to our north-northwest, low pressure to our east, and winds are in from more of a north-northeast direction. A dry but cool spring in 1939, following a teaser winter of 38-39 and a February CT of between 5.3 5.7. How interesting is that, everybody? Guess what happens in the following winter, 39-40, I'll let you guess, and we'll move on to the spring of 1949. Look at this one, with low pressure around Greenland and Iceland, high pressure around Ireland, and winds are in from a westerly direction. I'm a bit dim, I'm happy now. We're coming to the end of the spring updates, I wonder. That's a dry and warm spring in 1949. Then we've got the spring of 1950 with high pressure to our west, low pressure to our east, winds in from the north. That's a colder spring, but relatively dry as well. Spring's coming, everyone. everyone. Spring's coming. Next up, we have a spring of 1957. This is a dry and warm spring. High pressure dominates. It's the first one we've seen, actually, that you could probably classify as, like, quite dry and warm. High pressure is over top of the country. I think March 1957, an exceptionally dry and warm month. That's a very nice spring in 1957. Spring of 1966 showing up next. This one with low pressure out to our northwest, high pressure to our southwest. It's a much more unsettled spring. Generally mild, but it's a wetter, more unsettled spring. Then we've got spring of 1974. So this one, if I can get the highlighter working, blasted thing, this one has high pressure to our northeast, winds in from the east, so quite a dry spring with that one. Spring of 1980 has high pressure to the north, low pressure to the south, winds in from the east. So there's a lot of the easty winds during the spring of 1980, and it's wet across the southern parts of the country. A lot of thunderstorms, I think, in May of 1980. Spring of 1992 shows up next, one in the February CT range of 5.3 to 5.7. This is the one with high pressure ridging up from the southwest from the Azores. That's a dry and warm spring, particularly so in May of 1992, which is very summer-like. Then we've got 1999, the spring of 1999, looks like that. We saw it in the earlier analogs package, interestingly. Low pressure is over top of the country. Generally quite a warm spring. There's one potent cold spell in the middle of April 1999, but otherwise a lot of dry and warm weather with that one. 2004, we saw that in the earlier analogs package as well. This one, again, with high pressure to our northeast, winds in from the east. That's a pretty dry and warm spring, but does have a cold first half to March. Spring's coming! And then we've got the spring of 2008, which I think is the last one. This one is cold, with high pressure around Greenland, low pressure over and to the east. Country winds in from an east or northeast direction. Has quite a prolonged cold spell from the middle of March to the middle of April. There is snow involved. However, this spring also has a very warm and dry May. Spring is coming, everyone. Right, let's put all of that together then. So this is how all February's combined are looking, following, this is how all March, what am I talking about? I'm so tired, everybody. I'm absolutely exhausted. Right, so this is how all, let's do that again. Pretend that didn't happen. This is how all Marches combined are looking, following a February CT range of 5.3 to 5.7. Northern blocking around Greenland and Iceland. Low pressure around France and Spain. Winds in from the east. Definite cold and wintry potential with that one. All Aprils combined don't get a great deal better. Also has northern blocking, albeit a bit reduced. Low pressure off the Atlantic. That's generally a wet and pretty cool spring signal for those Aprils. All Mays combined, following a February CT range of 5.3 5.7. More in way of higher pressure ridging in from the north. So it's quite a cool ridge that, but it does at least turn us drier. And then all springs combined for a February CT range of 5.3 to 5.7. Northern blocking is there. Low pressure is to our south. Generally a cool and wet signal for those springs. Narrowing things down to just look at the years after 1950. This is how all Marches combined looking, following a February CT range of 5.3 to 5.7 post 1950. High pressure around Greenland. Low pressure around Spain. Winds in from the east. It's a rather drier signal, but probably still quite cool signal for those Marches. All February's combined, following, no, what I'm talking about, all April's combined, following a February CT range of 5.3 to 5.7, shows the Azores high, post 1950, or Azores high showing its hand, ridging up from the southwest, turning us drier, and also warmer as well in those Aprils. All Mays combined, following February CT range of 5.3, 5.7 post 1950. High pressure is over top of the country, so all of a sudden we get a strong anticyclonic signal, probably a warm, dry signal for those Mays. And then lastly, all springs combined, following a February CT range of 5.3 to 5.7. Post 1950, high pressure develops. It's northern blocking, but it's building in from the north. Pretty dry signal for these springs. probably not overly warm, especially early on in March, but it gets warmer by the time you get through to May. Quite a nice signal, really, for those springs to end us on, I think. And that's it. If you enjoyed this video, please smash the like button. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. You're going to be able to see future weather content. Tell your friends, family, and neighbours, and doctors, and vicars, and everybody else to subscribe to. We are grinding to 11k subscribers. Thank you so much for doing that. And don't forget to tell your friends and everybody else. And so drop a comment. Let us know what you think. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. And we're done. That brings us to the end of our spring update. So I hope you enjoyed this season of spring updates. Never quite as long with the spring updates because we start them in January rather than you know, the first month of the winter. So we always start in the second month of winter. It means that we don't have such a long season of updates. But I hope you enjoyed what we have done for you. We've just got one more season one roundup to bring you on Saturday. We'll get all of the long range miles together, see what they're showing for the spring. That'll be the first video up on Saturday morning. And then spring forecast a week today. And then after that, the long range bandwagon will roll on to summer. I know a lot of you are much more interested in summer than spring, so soon we'll be able to bring you some long range updates that people actually want to watch. No, that's not right. I know a lot of you do like the spring updates, but anyway, we'll be rolling on to summer updates in a couple of weeks. We have got spring forecast to go next week. So that's all for now. This video will be placed on the spring updates page with a written summary tomorrow at GavsWeatherVids.com. And coming up later on today, we're going to have GavsWeatherVids Sunny Roundup. And of course, we'll be live streaming with summer data during the summer. Live streaming with summer data from 6 p.m. So I shall see you live then. From me, it's time to say goodbye. And from Fluffy, it's time to say bye-bye, 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 bye-bye. And we're going to see, I'm so sorry, buddy. We're going to see you a little bit later on live. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.